Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Natural Living Workshop with Community Herbalist Lily Kunning. We are so thankful that Lily is able to provide these education sessions for us. And today, as you can see, she's going to be talking about chronic illness and treating the whole person. So welcome, Lily.
Hello, good to see everybody this morning. I am an herbalist by training, and I've had other training in Chinese medicine and energy work and body work and things like that. And a lot of that came from dealing with my own chronic pain and injury, which left me partially disabled. And I think it makes me a more understanding and compassionate holistic practitioner when I'm working with folks who either have chronic pain or chronic illness or both. And so I've developed sort of a 6-point protocol where I address, 6 different areas to help someone achieve maximum wellness while living with a condition that usually needs chronic monitoring or care. So let's get started. So, we're going to talk about why chronic illness is on the rise, and how overall wellness, which has a bunch of different components, diet, movement, toxin exposure, sleep, which I hate it when I do a typo. It's not sleep, it's sleep. Stress, as well as other factors, affects your overall wellness. And we don't live in a vacuum. So it's not just about taking a pill. It's about creating a lifestyle that enhances your wellness. And mental wellness is part and parcel with chronic illness. You can't live with a chronic illness or chronic pain and not be affected emotionally in some way. And so anxiety and depression in particular often go hand in hand with a lengthy chronic illness or injury. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. And there are always ways to make improvements in your wellness, even when you're living with a condition. I'm a practitioner that specializes in working with people with cancer or autoimmune or depression or anxiety. And there's always places that can be improved to achieve better wellness. So we're going to talk about those. So about me, I live with a partial disability, as I said, and chronic pain, and I'm constantly managing that so that I am functional and I can do the things in the world that I want to do. I was injured on the job, computer-related injuries, so most of mine are musculoskeletal. I lived with frozen fascia in my back and chronic pain and frozen IT bands, and I have worked very hard to gain flexibility and movement and to live most of my life without pain. At the height of my condition, I couldn't do anything for myself. I couldn't cut my own food. I couldn't drive. I couldn't take the bus. The vibrations hurt too much. And now, I live on a farm and I take care of livestock and I get out and I teach classes and, I hold down a job. Whereas when I was at the height of my condition, I had 2 years where my full-time job was getting better. I saw 4 practitioners a week. I was recovering on those days that I wasn't seeing a practitioner. It was a lot. I'm trained as a Western herbalist. I was trained in California. There's another typo. I hate that. I also was trained in Chinese medicine and body and energy work. So I have a very eclectic holistic background, but the thing that unifies all of those things is that it is holistic in its outlook. It's not reductionist. So, when you see a modern practitioner in the hospital, one that kind of takes insurance, they often are a specialist, meaning they have a narrower focus and they're concentrating on a thing. Holistic practitioners look at the big picture and try and connect the dots between things that a specialist might not be able to see because of the way that they are trained. So I sought holistic medicine after other models just did not work for me. And now I educate, counsel, and coach other people. So that's me. So lots of different kinds of chronic illness and pain. And so, if you live with one of these conditions, this session is going to be helpful to you in some way. So autoimmune disease, things that they're not sure what the origin is, although fibromyalgia, the medical model of how they see fibromyalgia has changed so much in the last decade. At first, they didn't believe it existed, and now they do, of course. And then they thought it had to do with the nervous system, and now they're thinking it has more to do with the vascular system. So lots of different, ways to keep up with your condition. I read all of the latest studies. I, subscribe to them. I have like Google updates, and I get practitioner magazines, and I read scientific studies to try and stay on top of what they have discovered and how it fits into a holistic model. So, I've done this presentation before, and I just recreated the slideshow, which is why there are typos. But I ended up having to add long COVID onto this, because long COVID is one of those newer ones since I have taught this again, and it is definitely a long-term chronic illness. So how did we get here? Well, it's kind of the perfect storm of bad conditions, really. We are surrounded, as Darlene mentioned earlier, with endocrine disrupting and carcinogenic chemicals in our environment. It's not just pollution outside, though, although it is in the soil, the air, and the water, which ultimately impacts everything we do. We're breathing, we're eating, we're drinking. The thing is that in the United States, there's very little regulation. Corporations are allowed to poison us for their profit margins. There's zero to little regulations. I'm actually surprised at the reaction, and it's been minor, but it's more than what it usually is, about the train wreck in East Palestine. They're actually saying that the corporation has to pay for things. At least that's the rhetoric that's happening. Usually that doesn't happen. The government, which means you as taxpayers, are paying for Superfund sites and toxic cleanup, and that still may happen. Right now the rhetoric is fresh and people are freshly outraged. But it's up to all of us to put pressure to make sure that those corporations are held accountable. And honestly, even if they clean it up, they're not being held accountable because they deliberately poisoned us, right? They broke the law in what they were carrying and how much they were carrying and not reporting it. They do it consistently. They fought their workers on safety regulations. If you remember, just a month prior, Joe Biden, basically told everybody that they weren't allowed to strike on the railroads, even though all they were asking for was better working conditions. They weren't even necessarily asking for more money. And so we have this perfect storm that benefits corporations over our citizens, and that is a huge problem. It also results in products being on the market that are not good for us. And unfortunately, a lot of people just believe that if it's on the store shelf, somebody must have made sure that it was safe for us. And that is just not the case. There are very little chemicals that are regulated in our personal care products and our cleaning products that we bring into our homes compared to other countries. So, things are allowed to be sold that are bad for us. We bring them in our home, assuming that they're safe, and they're not always safe. A lot of them have carcinogens and endocrine disrupting chemicals in them. Food has been consistently denatured over time. So when we look at those nutrition facts about what vitamins and minerals an apple has, that was done in the 40s and 50s. It is not the same nutritional profile anymore because big agriculture has denatured the soil. In order to get good crops using that big ag model, they are constantly having to dump more chemicals in the soil, fertilizers, and then pesticides and herbicides. And as a result, our food isn't as nutritious as it used to be, and it's not able to rebuild us. So we've got less nutritious food, lots of toxins in the environment. people just don't know about it. And it's certainly not talked about enough. The same corporations that are polluting our environment also, the mainstream media is owned by 4 companies. Every single TV station, radio station, and newspaper, 4 companies in the whole United States, and they have a political agenda. And so people just aren't aware enough about some of the problems that are happening. And there is deliberate misinformation sometimes, which is a serious problem. And the world is a stressful place. We've been dealing with a pandemic. We have been dealing with shortages and supply chain breakdowns and labor shortages and layoffs. And it's just one stress after another. I personally have to take a break from the news, and I only look at the news maybe 3 times a week. I don't listen to the news on the radio anymore like I used to. And I scan the news like every few days rather than every day, because it was a point that was just stressing me out. And stress is a big killer. When you have constant cortisol spikes, as if you are being chased by a lion, but there is no lion, and yet the cause of the stress doesn't really go away. Your body's not meant to do that. Your stress response is meant to get you away from the lion, and then your stress can go away. But if you're constantly being stressed out by your environment, and it's not just the news, right? The greater world is stressful, but sometimes we have stressful relationships, we have stressful financial situations, stress coming from having a chronic illness, right? And worrying about your health, and getting the proper care that you need, and having to be your own advocate and advocate for your care in a proactive way. That's very stressful. So chronic illness is a result of the perfect storm of things. I want people to know that there are things that we can control. We can't control what the railroad companies do, but we can control what we bring into our own homes, what we put into our own bodies, and what we know, right? We can seek out information. So let's talk about that. Move on to the next slide. So let's talk about nutrition, which is the foundation of all well-being. And I know Cancer Support Community knows this because they have lots of cooking programs, and I hear that they're expanding their kitchen, which is amazing. I'm super excited for that. But my favorite quote about food is, "Eat food, not too much, mostly plants." That is Michael Pollan, who is a food writer. If you've never heard of him, his books are amazing. I would totally seek them out. But unfortunately, if you look at a modern grocery store where most people get their food, there's a lot of not food in that food. And so, reading labels is going to be really important. And also how you shop that supermarket is going to be important. When I go into a Kroger, I go around the outside and I avoid the middle aisles. The middle aisles full of cans and boxes and bags, all of that is processed food, and you want to avoid as much processed food as possible. And I say this with the full knowledge that sometimes we are so exhausted that it is hard to make food for ourselves. And so we rely on convenience foods to give us calories. And I totally get that. I have been there. But there are ways to eat a more whole food diet that we will talk about a little bit. And I also want to put out there that there is no one size fits all diet. There are people out there that are trying to sell you something, whether it's a philosophy or products, and they're like, this is the diet, the one that is good for human beings. And it's like, first of all, human beings are not a monolith, and we all have different needs biochemically. And so there's no one size fits all diet. So a keto diet, a vegan diet, a low fat, no carb diet, none of those is going to work for every single person, generally speaking. And so these are broad brushstrokes of nutrition, but there are 2 diets that are very similar. You can see that they are both pyramids or inverted pyramids. because there's a broad base of things that you should be eating, which is the larger part. So in the Mediterranean food pyramid, it's the base. In the Japanese food top, I guess it's like a spinning top, it's the top, right? And so there's different philosophies about it based on the region that these countries live in, right? So their diet is adapted to where they are and what kind of food is naturally available. So you're going to see a lot more seafood on both of these than a landlocked Ohio diet, but you still can follow these as guidelines. And so let's start with that Mediterranean food pyramid. At the base of it, we've got fruits, vegetables, and grains. And when they say grains, they mean whole grains, not white flour, sandwich bread, or, highly refined pasta. They are talking about whole grains. And so that should make up the vast majority of your diet. When I am cooking for my family, half of our plate is vegetables, and then I do a starch for about a quarter of it, and I do a protein for about a quarter of it. And that is how we eat. So if you look at it, there's like, if we had one of those little section plates that they give to babies, half of it would be vegetables or greens, right? Because I like kale and things like that. A quarter of it would be, couscous or a rice kind of dish or something like that. And then the other quarter of it would be a protein. And I don't always eat animal proteins. In fact, I would say that I probably eat animal proteins 2 or 3 times a week at this point. I have learned how to cook delicious vegetarian food, sometimes vegan, and it nourishes me. So if we move up the pyramid, we're looking at fish and seafood in the Mediterranean diet being next, not meat, fish and seafood. And so they recommend that being an often, right? So if you look at the frequency, you've got every day, fruits, vegetables, and grains, often, fish and seafood. And then you go up to the next thing, and it's poultry, eggs, cheese, and yogurt, right? So not all meat, but poultry, as well as other animal-based proteins, dairy and eggs. And those should be, daily to weekly, right? So when I'm not eating, trout, I have an egg-based dish, or I have some yogurt with my granola, or, that sort of thing. And then the very top one, the one that you eat the least amount of, is meats and sweets, right? They rhyme and they go together. So red meat, not very often. I don't eat red meat very often. I do think tonight we're having lamb burgers, but that is like the only red meat on the meal plan for the whole month. We eat a lot of chicken and vegetarian food, as I say. And then the thing I love about this food pyramid is that it talked about daily physical activity at the base, right? Every day, drinking water every day, and a little bit of wine in moderation. They're Mediterranean, they like their wine. But it is good for you. It helps cut cholesterol. It helps circulate the blood. So if you're not on medication that allows you to have a glass of wine now and again, go for it, because it's not bad for you. Everything in moderation, right? And then the Japanese food guide is similar, right? Grains are up at that top. Then you get different kinds of alternative proteins, not red meat. Then you get more animal-based proteins like eggs and dairy. They eat less dairy because they are Asian. And while they love dairy and it's been incorporated into their diet, they don't eat it on the regular. It's not part of the enzyme and bacteria that they developed historically. So it's a little harder for them to process. And then you get sweets and things at the bottom. So that is food. And there's obviously a lot more here, but I'm doing broad brushstrokes here because I want to talk about the whole enchilada.
Lily, before we go on, there's a couple of things in the chat. Joni wrote that she has fibromyalgia. I apologize if I screwed that name up. IBS, depression, anxiety, hypersensitive body, chronic fatigue, chronic low back pain, chronic UTI for the past 5 months, and diabetes. It takes her 12 to 15 months to get over the pain of a surgery. And then this past year, she had 2 gallbladder surgeries, total knee replacement, pelvic organ prolapse, and bladder sling. She does yoga and walking, but most other exercises is still very painful because of her CNS is too active, causing the pain. She's really been struggling with high pain levels, an 8 to 9 level if she's not very careful with her activities. She takes 13 different kinds of prescription pills. What are some herbal or alternative treatments / activities that may help me lower pain and get rid of UTIs?
So the thing about herbal medicine is that it is very unlike modern biochemical medicine, and it's not a sort of take a pill for this kind of situation. The beauty of herbal medicine is that it is customized to the human being. So we look at your constitution, we look at your symptom manifestation, we look at your health goals, we look at all of your lifestyle, and then we make recommendations, because you're not going to start taking a supplement and have it be the same supplement all the way through as you are restoring your systems. It's going to change over time based on how your body and your life is transformed. So I'm sorry to say there's no quick answer for you, but what I will say is working with a holistic practitioner on a wellness plan will get you results faster than just trying to grab at symptom management. Like, I have a UTI. Well, your UTI is a symptom of a larger underlying problem that needs to be addressed, in addition to the uncomfortable infection that is happening in your urinary tract. And so at the end of this, I will talk about group coaching and consultation as part of a strategy to move you from, unfortunately, you won the lotto when it comes to a lot of simultaneous stuff to deal with. And I can imagine just getting through your day with all of that list of things is quite the challenge. And actually, later in the presentation, we're going to talk about spoon theory. But what that means is that there's no place to go but up. And so I would be happy to help you get there, but it's not as simple of an answer as I'm sure you would want.
Thank you, Lily. And then we have another question in the chat. Kathleen writes, I have a friend who is vegan, but she is so skinny she looks like a prisoner of war. Is that healthy?
Probably not. As I say, not everyone has a diet that, there's no one size fits all diet. And so, she may be missing nutrients. She may be missing calories. And unfortunately, people who go for extreme diets, and veganism is one of those extremes, it is quite difficult to maintain in the long term. Often it is masking eating disorders. And so if you are concerned for your friend, I would encourage them to maybe get some counseling around their food control issues and see if that is the case. I'm not saying it's exactly what's happening with your friend. I don't know your friend, but it is common for people who restrict their diets to have more mental illness issues than necessarily seeking out just a healthy diet for themselves. So it's something to look at.
Thank you, Lily.
Moving on to movement. So you don't have to be a triathlete to be healthy. And there is a movement out there for everybody. Like I said in my introduction, when I was at the height of my injury, I could barely do anything. And it was me finding ways to move, and it was a limited range of motion and it wasn't always comfortable. but I gradually got to the point of where I am now. And am I exactly where I want to be? No, I actually want to be more flexible and more strong. And so, now I'm at the point where I do 20 minutes of Qigong every day and just daily exercise of getting out and taking care of my chickens and doing gardening and things. But it took me years to get there from my injury. And so there were a lot of steps along the way. I think when I first started, I had to do like water aerobics, and I joined the YMCA so that I could do their water aerobics program in their pool. And it wasn't always easy, but it was easier on some of my stiff fascia and frozen joints and things to do water aerobics. Qigong has always been helpful, and if you get the right instructor, they will work with you to adapt the movement to where you are so that you don't experience pain, but you are getting the restorative benefits. Yoga can work for some people. It didn't work for me because my injury, the way it works is like holding a position still actually exacerbated my injuries, whereas movement through the injury was more helpful to me. So there's no one movement for everybody either. All those people that are like, do yoga, it's good for everybody. It's like, no, that's not necessarily true. And so what the challenge is to find the movement that works for you. It works not only with your body and your body's current restrictions, but also with your schedule, because you can't incorporate movement if, you have to go all the way across town and you only have an hour and you can't make that class and take a shower and then get back to work. Like, it needs to fit into your life. And so it is sometimes a struggle to find the thing, but all you need to do is raise your heart rate gradually over 20 minutes to maintain a healthy state. And, you can do that 4 times a week and be okay. And if you're looking to improve, you want to look at what you want to improve. Do you want to improve your strength, your flexibility, your stamina? All of those things, working with a wellness coach or a fitness coach can help you. And I would look for someone that has experience working with folks with physical restrictions or limited stamina if you're easily fatigued. Let's move on. Sleep. Sleep is super important. If you're not getting good restorative sleep every day, you are not resetting your systems, both physically, emotionally, mentally. Sleep is necessary to stay well. And so if you are having problems getting to sleep or staying asleep, you should be working with some sort of practitioner to make that happen for you. There's no supplement or medicine that's going to make up for a lack of long-term sleep. And a lot of the medications that are specifically helping you get to sleep don't let you achieve REM states. So it's not a true restorative sleep. It just makes you think you're getting sleep. But sleep is defined as achieving REM states at least once a night, usually twice. And that will allow your systems to completely reset. And one of the things that I do with my coaching class is I help people find a sleep hygiene routine that gets them a good night's sleep. And it's work. All of these areas, there's no simple fix. It's about finding what works for you through trial and error and working with someone who knows a lot about these things and can show you different options for you to try and figure out what works for you. But sleep is super important. Next, stress management and emotional well-being. So there are a lot of things that I would recommend for both stress management and anxiety and depression, kind of in one fell swoop. So mindfulness practices of just being present and focusing on the present moment. Sometimes it's your breath, like, a sitting practice. Sometimes it's sitting outside in a forest, listening to birdsong and not thinking about anything else. That's called Shinrin Yoku, forest bathing. Yoga can be a mindfulness practice because you're working really hard to achieve that one pose, and that's what you're focusing on. Tai Chi and Qigong are movement modalities that also focus on breath. And so, you're working to perfect your form and you're not thinking about that to-do list. So mindfulness practices over time reduce depression and anxiety statistically. I guarantee it. Like when I don't do my Qigong practice, I'm not the same. I do need to do it every day. Now that I've found it, my body craves it. And it's a good thing to crave, unlike, Cheetos. So hobbies and joyful activities. One of the things that I have noticed when I'm working with someone with chronic illness is that usually the first thing to go are things that they love. Those hobbies, those activities that they did, maybe they just don't have the spoons to do it anymore. But one of the things that helps cope with stressful situations like illness is making sure you make time for something that gives you joy, and experiencing joy or laughter. And maybe it's going to be a different activity while you are somewhat physically impaired, but finding those things and getting to them multiple times a week is so important. So is, hanging out with your friends, being able to talk with them, being able to laugh with them, getting support from them, checking in with them, finding out about their lives, cooking together, any number of things. All of those are so important to emotional well-being. And we lost a lot of that during the pandemic, right? So being able to Zoom with your friends, or, maybe you watch a movie together on streaming, or maybe you're working on a book club, all these different things can bring you joy and keep you connected. Being connected is very important. We are social animals. We are not meant to exist in isolation. The other thing that I would say is the saying no is super important. I noticed that most of the people here today are women, and women traditionally have a hard time saying no. We are trained to serve others and be of service to others and help people. And saying no sometimes is hard. But when you say no to someone else, you're often saying yes to yourself. You are creating boundaries that allow you to take care of yourself when you are impaired. So that means coming up with a work schedule that actually encourages balance and doesn't constantly sap the last bits of your energy. Because as someone living with a chronic issue, you only have so much to begin with. We're going to talk about spoon theory in a minute. But yeah, I want to make sure that people are giving themselves permission to take time and space for themselves, because they are going through something. And sometimes that means you get to be selfish, because being selfish is not always a bad thing, right? When you're in the airplane and there's, we hit an air pocket and the masks pop down, what do they tell you? You put your mask on first, and then you help the person next to you. You have to put on your air mask first.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Make space for that. Next. All right, spoon theory. I believe we can click on the video, and it looks like we might need to rewind it. Does it? Yeah. Let's allow. Hopefully it won't start right there.
There are 3 simple changes I tell all of my friends.
Okay, so go ahead and just rewind. Oh, I think we might need to go to a new tab, maybe.
Can you see that now?
It's still the slideshow.
Okay.
Sorry, I made it complicated, didn't I?
No, it's all good. Let me fix this. Okay, stop share, and let me go to screen share again.
You have to start drinking more water. You wouldn't believe how dehydrated most people are. Number 2, you need to make it.
That's an ad. Go ahead and skip that.
Okay.
I was like, that doesn't sound right.
No, hang on. We'll get it, Lily, I promise.
Okay. So the video is about spoon theory, and I don't know how many of you know about this, but it is a way of envisioning and talking about what it's like to live with chronic illness. All right.
Today, we're going to be talking about spoon theory, but first, let's talk about chronic illness. Some people assume that someone with a chronic illness needs around-the-clock care at a medical facility. In reality, people who suffer from chronic illnesses are all around us just trying to live their best lives. According to the Center for Disease Control, around 6 in every 10 adults in the United States suffer from a chronic disease, and 4 in 10 adults suffer from at least 2. Christine Massarantino has multiple chronic diseases and brilliantly introduced spoon theory to the world in her blog, ButYouDon'tLookSick.com, as a way to make the spoonie lifestyle tangible to everyone. Spoon theory at its core is a metaphor for living life with a chronic illness, where spoons equal energy and effort. Every task and every decision is based on the number of spoons or the amount of energy required to complete it. Not every task is weighted equally. For many, taking a shower, doing hair, getting dressed, and especially a trip up or down the stairs costs so many spoons that by the time they are ready for the day, they've already spent almost half of their spoons. Each illness is different and each person is different. There is no one-size-fits-all spoon equation. A major challenge for spoonies is that they never really know how many spoons they're going to get each day. External factors can tear away your spoons. Didn't sleep well? You wake up with less spoons. Is the weather bad? Take away a few more. Basically, it's a gamble from day to day how many spoons you start out with. Living the spoonie life means constantly calculating opportunity costs. Choosing some activities may mean excluding others. It's often impossible to do everything you want to do when you want to do it. Running out of spoons is costly. It results in mental fatigue where it feels like you're in a fog, can't think clearly, can't make decisions, and find it hard to remember the most basic information. The most disruptive and most common result of running out of spoons is complete and utter physical fatigue. It's not simply being tired. It's being completely debilitated. All of the willpower and motivation in the world can't get someone up those stairs, even if it's to go to bed. This type of empty spoons feeling isn't something that someone can get over quickly. They don't just take a nap or go to bed one night and wake up all better. This exhaustion can last for days, weeks, or even longer. Even worse, this can cause a flare-up in the chronic illness. This means that each day the person wakes up with less spoons and it costs double the spoons to do the same activities that they were doing before the flare-up. As you can imagine, that makes it twice as difficult to complete regular activities without running out of spoons. Being this exhausted and feeling this helpless takes a mental toll on a person. Remember that mental fatigue? It's not like you can simply read a book or do work from your bed. You can't focus. You can't pay attention. It's hard to process new information. Constantly having to rely on other people for basic things, having to turn down or cancel social plans, and being bored out of your mind because you can't do anything feels pretty terrible. Imagine how frustrating it is to sit there wanting to do something, but knowing that you can't. The unfortunate thing is that being anxious or depressed costs more spoons, which can set someone back even further. By now, you may be asking yourself how you can help the spoonie in your life. Simple. Start by recognizing that it's hard to ask for help. Spoonies may feel like they're a burden or that asking for help means that they're quitting. General statements like, call me if you need anything, only go so far. Be specific when offering help. If you're happy to give someone a ride, do their dishes, help with laundry, or cook a meal, say so. It's much easier to ask someone for something that they have already offered. Remind them that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Understand that just because someone seems fine doesn't mean that they are. Trust someone when they say that an activity is too much. Don't pressure a spoonie into spending more spoons than they have. They are the ones that are going to have to pay for it, not you. Educate yourself on their condition so that you better understand how they feel and what they're going through. You can also do this by asking the person. Learning about spoon theory is a great start. At the end of the day, love your spoonie for who they are, spoons and all.
So let me explain where the metaphor of spoons comes from, because they didn't do that in that video, but I found the video to be super helpful. Christine was talking to her friend who asked her what it's like to live with the chronic illness. She has lupus and some other things. And so she was struggling to kind of let her know what it's like. And so they were in a diner. And so she grabbed all the spoons off the table and she's like, here, these are your spoons, and everything that you do in every day costs a certain number of spoons. And so she's like, tell me about your day. And she had the spoons in front of her and she's like, well, I get up and I take a shower and Christine grabs spoons and she's like, that's how much that costs. And so, you know, she got to the point where she was going to go out and catch the bus to her job because they live in New York City. And she's like, I already lost half my spoons just getting ready for my day. She's like, yeah, that's how it is. So everybody starts out with a certain number of spoons every day. And again, you don't know how many you're going to get. And often with chronic illness, because it's cyclic, you're going to end up with less and less as time goes on if things are unchecked. And you can only do what you can do, right? You only have that many spoons. And so it is a way of communicating with people. If you tell them about spoon theory, it's a way of communicating with people like, I've already spent all my spoons. I can't go out with you tonight. I'm really sorry. Can we reschedule? If people were more understanding, often it makes just having that little bit of breathing room so that you don't have to constantly be put in a position of having to say no because you have understanding people in your support network. I just wanted to put that out there for people, that spoon theory is a very helpful way to describe it. And if you look at Christine's blog, but you don't look sick, it's the #1 blog post that happened many years ago. It's pinned at the top so that everybody can share that with their loved ones and their support network, to give yourself some space so that you're allowed to say no and people understand what it's like to be you. Because unless you've been through it, and some people get like limited exposure, like, oh, they had a surgery and so they were recovering from surgery and they're frustrated because temporarily they are recovering and they can't do as much as they want to. Well, imagine doing that amplified for a long period of time, right? And so not everybody gets that that experience. And so being able to share that is something that I wanted to put out for people. So, but you don't look sick.com. I am happy to answer more questions. This was a broad brushstroke, but I wanted to let you know that one of the programs that I do is a group coaching, and I give money to cancer support community for every enrollment. It's called Wellness in Weeks. It's a 6-month program because every month we spend time on nutrition, or we spend time on sleep hygiene, or we spend time on detoxifying our homes. And every week you get homework that allows you to make gradual changes over the course of that month. And you get more videos and things to read each week as well. We meet on Zoom like this, so it's super easy to attend once a month. And then every week you get an email from me with homework, right? Because it doesn't work unless you're working it. So I wanted to let you know about that. It's on my website. You'll get a copy of this typo-ridden PDF, which I'll give you the link. Sorry about the typos. I was hastily redoing it to add long COVID and some other things. But I wanted to let you know about Wellness in Weeks because, like I said, my clinical practice has sort of morphed over time to be mostly people with chronic illness, disease, and pain. And I've learned a lot through my own injuries, but also helping other people. And this particular program is directly out of all the things that I coach people on one-on-one, but it makes it so that it's better because I can reach more people. And I really want to help more people. And 2, it's a cohort model. So when you join that monthly class, you are in class with other people who are going through the same thing you are and trying to improve their lives. And sometimes you can make some pretty cool friendships. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm not trying to sell you anything, but if you are interested, it is there. You can enroll. And I would love to work with you more closely. So I am here as a clinical practitioner, and Haven Herbs is here. They support me in doing these every month. It's the little apothecary that I formulate for. And we are here for you with whatever you need. I am happy to answer any and all questions, both in this webinar, as well as if you come up with a question after the fact, please email me. I am happy to answer any question at any time for folks from Cancer Support Community. So yeah, I know we ended just a little early and that's fine, but if you have more questions, I'm happy to answer them now.
Yeah, and as Lily said, I will be forwarding this slide to you as well as Lily's email address, so you'll have easy contact with her.
Yes.
How much does it cost for the 6-month program?
So it is $600. $100 of that is going to Cancer Support Community, and there are payment plans. So you don't have to pay it all up front if you can't do that. There are payment plans available.
Lily, I know that you and I met for an individual consultation for my own personal health. Is that something that you're still providing in addition to the coaching?
Yes, I do one-on-one consultations as well. I have limited availability, but my availability is on the website. So if you go and you click the appointments, it'll pop up what is available. And often I will do custom formulations for my clients, or sometimes I'll recommend, like probiotics or something, and then I can provide a link to a discounted probiotic. I actually have a dispensary that provides things that I myself don't make. Like, I'm an herbalist, I make herbal remedies, but like probiotics, I don't make those. And so, but if it's something that is beneficial to you, I have a full script dispensary where I can give you a link. You're free to get stuff anywhere you want, but I discount all of those supplements to make it more affordable to get professional strength supplements as a public service. And even if you don't see me as a consultation, you can go to my website and click on that dispensary link at the bottom of every page, and it will take you to the full script dispensary, and you're free to buy whatever. As someone who has gone to one of my classes, I just make it like a public service that you can get discounted supplements, because supplements can be spendy, right?
Yeah.
Like, I buy vitamin D every season like this, where it's gray outside, and I buy vitamin D and I take it from October to March. But vitamins can be expensive. So yeah.
We have a question in the chat. Elaine asked, I am trying to eat less meat in my side dishes. Any suggestions on other sources of protein? And she clarified non-GMO versus, or then clarify non-GMO versus organic. So sorry, 2 questions. So the first one is, any suggestions on other sources of protein?
Yeah, absolutely. Depending on, your personal preferences and your dietary restrictions, animal-based protein is delicious and complete, but it's not necessarily, necessary. You can do complementary proteins of like beans and corn, beans and rice. I love Louisiana style red beans and rice. I think it's delicious. I'll eat that on its own. I just made a red curry, but instead of chicken, which is how it usually is served in restaurants, I used kabocha pumpkin as the main thing. So it was a pumpkin curry, and it was freaking delicious. There are lots of websites that you can visit that specialize in both vegetarian and vegan recipes. And there are also magazines that give you different recipes every month. One of the things that I love is on my phone, I have an app. It's called Paprika, and you have to pay for it. It's like a few bucks, but when you get it, it saves all your recipes for you, and you can edit them yourself if you've like adapted the recipe for your tastes. And they have a browser function. You know how annoying it is when you're looking on the internet for a recipe and you have to read like 50 pages before you even get to the recipe? Paprika takes care of that. So what you do is you go to the recipe and you're like, yes, this is the one I want. And you press download, and it only downloads the ingredients and the directions. So that is amazing to me. And then I get to save all the recipes that I like, and it's just there on my phone. So I have saved a lot of recipes that way. Once I find a good one that I really like, I want to keep it. So I save it on my phone.
And then the second question is, can you clarify non-GMO versus organic?
Yes, so GMO means genetically modified organism. It is an animal or a plant that has been modified in their DNA. And so it's not the way it would occur in nature. Now, some GMOs have been implicated in health problems. So, you know, read up on those. I personally do not consume any GMOs. Organic is a legal definition. So there are different federal guidelines for organic versus different states. Most of the states that have organic certifications are more stringent than the federal one. The federal government keeps getting lobbied to sort of defang what organic means. And so there is constantly a battle at the USDA with public commentary about, you know, not taking the meaning of organic and just watering it down. Like the last one that happened where there was lots of public commentary and they didn't end up changing it was Big Ag wanted to be able to use chemical fertilizers and still call it organic. And they had a public testimony that happened, like a period of time where people commented. And because of the amount of comments, they didn't end up changing the legal definition of organic to include that. But organic means that they don't use any artificial synthetic fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides in the growing of that crop, or the animal that is certified organic didn't eat any feed that had that happen to it. So that's what organic means, and it is a legal definition.
Excellent. And then she says, I am seeing, Elaine says, I am seeing a lot of non-GMO labels and this is confusing.
So it just means that they are saying nothing in this product has been genetically modified. And so, you know, a lot of food hasn't been genetically modified, but they're starting to label it as such because people are concerned about GMOs. So it is a way for that company to tell you, you know, you don't have to worry about this food being genetically modified. That is all. Yeah.
We have a couple more minutes. Anybody else have any questions that you would like to take this time to ask Lily?
Information is power.
And Elaine says, thank you for that information, Lily.
Of
How,
course.
how important is it when you go to the grocery store to buy organic fruits and vegetables as opposed to the ones that aren't labeled organic?
So it depends on the fruit or vegetable. Now, one of the nonprofits that I often recommend in my presentations is EWG, environmentalworkinggroup.org, EWG.org. They publish every year the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. And so the Dirty Dozen are 12 crops that have the highest amount of residue of pesticides, herbicides, things like that, that you're always going to want to buy organic. And the Clean 15 are 15 crops that you don't have to worry about having to pay the extra to buy it organic because there is precious little residue in those. A lot of thick-skinned things like bananas, for example, tend to be on the Clean 15. And that's a super helpful guide, and they publish it for free every year. You can get it on their website. The other book that I recommend is called To Buy or Not to Buy Organic, and it's more lengthy, but it explains what you might want to look for as general guidelines when you're in the supermarket, whether you want to buy organic or not organic, and what that means for your overall health. Thank you for putting that in the chat, Darlene. That is super helpful. EWG.org for sure. They have a lot of guides, consumer guides that are really helpful. It was nice to see you all today.
Lily, we do have one more comment. Elaine says, I'm not feeling satisfied with eating more plants. Do you think washing non-organic food is helpful?
Not satisfied. Let me look at that really quick. I'm not satisfied eating more plants. Okay, so I think there are two, a comment and a question. So if you're not feeling satisfied eating a lot more plants, it could be that you're not getting enough protein for you. And so maybe adding some eggs or some beans and rice or some sort of protein, if you want to avoid more animal protein, would be something that would help you. So if you're not feeling physically satisfied after just eating plants, I would definitely opt for more filling things like stews or chilies or things that are heavier, or curries. And I would add some other kind of protein combination in there. And then the other part was do you think washing non-organic food is helpful? So it depends. In the case of strawberries, no, because strawberries are so permeable that eating a non-organic strawberry is often just eating petrochemicals. It permeates the entire fruit. So washing is just a surface treatment. So in the case of strawberries, no, it's not helpful. But if, we're talking about a crop where most of the residue just is on the skin, either washing it or peeling it could be helpful. And again, I would look at the EWG guide because they will tell you where the pesticide residues are and how to avoid them as much as possible.
I have another question. My brother, for the last several years, that lives on a farm, he's been harvesting ghost pipe and taking that. I think he puts it in vodka. And he and his wife have been drinking that, and they say that it really helps them to have less arthritis pain. What is your opinion or familiarity with that?
Yeah, ghost pipe is known for assisting with joint pain. It's one of those remedies that I have worked with depending on what the needs are of my clients. Yeah. So that's called tincturing, when you extract a plant or a fungus in alcohol and then you drink the liquid extract. It takes constituents out with the ethanol and the water. And then you're able to take a liquid, well-preserved remedy or tonic. And yes, ghost pipe is definitely one of those that works well with joint pain.
Is it safe?
It depends on how much they're taking, and it also depends on their bodies and constitutions. I would hope that they had consulted somebody to figure out how much is good for their body mass and their metabolism, because it's based on those kinds of things.
I think like 2 tablespoons a day.
Yeah. And again, I don't know them. I don't know their constitution. I don't know their body mass. I don't know their metabolism. And so those are things that I would look at when I was recommending any particular supplement and how much they should take. Because it's really based on the individual herbal medicine. It's not like a standardized dose that, oh, you're going to take 50 milligrams, or you're going to take 25, it's not like that in herbal medicine. Because also the ghost pipe that they're harvesting may be more or less potent than other ghost pipe on a different property, depending on the environment that it grows in, the soil, the water, the sunlight, like all of those conditions create the phytochemicals that are inside those cell walls that are being extracted into the alcohol and then taken. So there's a lot of variables. Sorry, I can't give you a straight answer, but if they've been taking it for a while and they have not seen any bad effects, then it's probably a good dose for them, especially if it's helping them with their pain.
Good.
And Lily, Elaine says, thank you again. You're so knowledgeable. And her new quote is to make meat your side dish.
Nice. Awesome.
Well, we
Well, it was
are at
great
the,
seeing you.
I apologize, Lily.
I was just going to say it was great seeing you all. Thank you so much for coming.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you. We are at the top of the hour, so we want to thank Lily for her knowledge and her expertise. Again, thank you so much, and please plan on joining us next month in March for our medicinal gardening.
Bye. Thank you.